Hello everyone, my name is Aaron Dalysling. I've been involved in landscaping and vegetable production for many years. And what I want to do today is I want to take some of that knowledge and information that I have and share with you so that you in your daily endeavor, whether it is to produce vegetables for your own satisfaction for sale or even ornamental plants for sale, that you'll be able to take this information and to use it in your daily farming activity. What I want to look at today is the whole matter of soils. Soils are fundamental to plant health. Soils are fundamental to everything that you would see as far as growth and production is concerned. We're going to be very basic. We're not going to get too in depth with things, but I think that you need to have a basic knowledge of soil in order to be able to produce as you should. Firstly, what are the fundamental importance of soil? Simple things. The soil helps to anchor your plant in position. If you don't have soil, you find that the anchoring of that plant is not very good. Then the soil acts as a storage unit for things like water, air, organic matter, and eventually minerals and minerals mainly. It is the source of food for your plant. So if you see a plant, your plant may look healthy, it may not look healthy. It is telling us something about the soil, that your soil may be lacking in certain nutrients, the soil may not be what it should be as far as the structure is concerned, and that gives us indication, and it is an indicator that you need to do something about that. There are basically three types of soil. We have sandy soil, we have clear soil, and we have what is known as a loam soil. Let's look at them. A sandy soil is one that the particles, what make up the soil, the structure of that soil, each particle is very, very large. And so, with the sandy soil, you find that their water holding capacity, the ability of that soil to hold water, is not very good. You put water into it, it drains away and it disappears. Then, on the other end of the spectrum, there's the clay soils. The clay soils have very, very fine particles, and that has a lot of disadvantages as far as plant growth is concerned. We mentioned with the sandy ones that it doesn't hold water. The clay soils, it holds too much water. The particles, they swell. For instance, in Barbados, the Scotland district is a very, very good example of a place or area that has a lot of clear soils. When rain falls, those clear soils take in the water, they suck it in like a sponge, they hold it, it gets very, very heavy, and in many cases it slides off the rock surface upon which those soils are sitting. Then lastly, there's a loam soil, that's spelled L-O-A-M. The loam soil is one that is filled with a lot of organic matter, and this is the type of soil that your plants will grow best in. If you have a low soil as opposed to a sandy soil that allows the water to just disappear very quickly, or if you have a clay soil that holds everything into these tight bonds and the plants never survive very well in them. One of the other disadvantages, I should say, of the clay soils is that when the sun comes out, they bake, those soils become very, very hard. And so the little plant roots that just penetrate through the soil, they're not able to penetrate as they should. And hence, you have a very poor root structure with your plants. So the preferred type of soil is a loam soil. This is one that has a lot of organic matter. The particles are not too big, they're not too small, and hence the roots are able to penetrate those soils very easily. You get a lot of root mass, and the more roots you have, the better growth you will have of a plant. So we've seen the type of soils we have, we understand a little the function, the fact that our soils act as a medium to produce, hold water for us, air, and one of the things I did not mention, is that soils also have a lot of microorganisms that have a fundamental role as far as breaking down organic matter. This is your poultry manure, leaves, stems, or whatsoever is in that soil. Your microbes help to break those down into a form that then the plant can extract the nutrients from the organic matter. We just mentioned nutrients. If you look at this soil, for example, this sample of soil we have here, in this soil there are all the factors that will cause a plant to produce well. Up front you can notice some of the bits and pieces of organic matter that is not yet properly broken down. But in here we have one of the other things. You remember I mentioned also air. A soil like this allows a lot of air spaces, and we need these air spaces because your soil must have what is called soil oxygen. Your roots need oxygen. If roots are deprived of oxygen, that plant is going to be stunted, it's not going to grow well, it will eventually die. You'll find that when you get a lot of rain and those pores are all clogged up, the plant roots will be deprived of oxygen and it will die. But this brings us to our next point when we look at soil. In this soil, there are the nutrients that a plant needs for its growth, for health, and for survival, for production of blossoms, and then for production eventually of fruit. And there are a few basic nutrients. There are four. I'm going to break them down into what we will call macronutrients, and secondly, micronutrients. When we speak of macronutrients, most of the time, three of them are mentioned. That is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. But the fourth macronutrients that your plant needs in large quantity is also sulfur. So we have nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and sulfur. And for those of you who may have a chemical background, or if you go into any one of our hardware stores, you may see a few letters denoting the nutrients component that is in a fertilizer, for example. Nitrogen is usually represented by the letter N, phosphorus P, potassium K, and sulfur S. The plant needs nitrogen for its growth. For instance, in human being, we need proteins for the production of new cells, for building of muscles and such like. And nitrogen is to the plant what proteins is to human beings. Then it needs phosphorus. Phosphorus helps with root development. For instance, if you were to do tests and you have a soil like this that has very high level of phosphorus, and after a few weeks you were to take that plant out, wash all the soil off, and examine the root mass, you will notice that the soil that has a lot of phosphorus, or adequate amounts of phosphorus, or I should say adequate amounts of available phosphorus, that particular plant will have a wonderful root mass. And the phosphorus also helps with blossom formation also. Then the third element in your soil would be potassium. Potassium helps with the structure of the plant. All that fibrous matter of the plant that keeps the plant firm and keeps it upright, and that gives it its strength. Potassium is very important in that area to also help with fighting off plant diseases, and it is fundamental to proper fruiting. So if you want to have a good crop, a good yield, potassium is one of the nutrients that needs to be added to it. And we have things like sulfur, which work along with the other major nutrients that your plant needs for its development. Then there are other elements in your soil that you, minerals that you will not, that are not as needed. No, there's a bad term. That is not needed in as large amounts as nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And these other ones are called micronutrients. By the term micronutrients, what it means is that the plant needs minute quantities of these nutrients in its daily nutrition. They may be minute, but if they are lacking, they're going to affect the entire development of that plant. They're going to affect how the plant is able to even utilize the macronutrients that we feed to our plants. So we need the micronutrients, and a few examples of micronutrients are things like iron, zinc, magnesium, manganese, copper, calcium. These are the things that our plants will need in order for them to function well. And I just mentioned calcium. In Barbados, one of the things about our soils is that our soils have very high calcium levels, and this has good, there's something good about it, and sometimes there are things that can be detrimental to your plant because of very high calcium levels. But we won't get into that because that's going to put us into some chemistry and things that may not be necessary. But notice this: the nutrients in your soil, your plant needs in order for you to be able to, for instance, in order for you to get crops growing very well, healthy crops, you need nitrogen, you need phosphorus, you need potassium and sulfur, and then you also need these micronutrients. Just like we need vitamins and minerals in our bodies, the plant also needs those things for proper growth. My advice to you is that if you are setting up a garden, if you are growing in containers, make sure that your soil, the soil that you're using, is a soil that has a very good balance of what we would normally call dirt as well as organic matter. And your source of organic matter, as you would see from some of the clips that we have, you can get some bags of farmyard manure from your local poultry producer, sheep manure, cow manure. Any of these here would be able to give you quite a bit of organic matter in your soil, and you just mix it in with your soil. You can just lay it down, fork it in. If you have a small rototiller, you can rotivate it into the soil, and you want to have that in the first 8-10 inches of your soil. That is where your plant roots are going to be feeding, and that is where a lot of the activity is going to be centered. So you want to know that those first 10 inches of soil has a lot of organic matter in them, because your roots is going to be taking its source of food and nutrients from it, as well as the organic matter loosens your soil and it allows the root to penetrate as much as possible. And the more roots you have, the healthier plant you will have. So, if you need to have a bountiful crop, if you need to have healthy plants, you need to look at this matter of your soil and make sure that you build the soil to a place where it will be able to sustain the plant, will be able to give the production that you need. And if you're into ornamental plants, you'll be able to get the flowering and the lively, vibrant leaves that you would need for your ornamental plants. I hope that these few tips would help you to be a better farmer for yourself, for your customers, for your country. Have a great day.